Hi, my name's Gigi. I'm the graphic designer for Florida Sea Grant, and today I will be making blackened shrimp tacos with spicy corn and chickpeas, along with a cilantro lime spicy coleslaw. And this is part of the Seafood at Your Fingertips Live series. So I'm gonna go ahead and start by making the coleslaw first. I typically like to make the coleslaw as the first thing that I make, and then I put it in the fridge to refrigerate for at least 30 minutes, but it could be up to however long if you wanted to make it the night before to prepare, anything like that. But basically it's because the citrus in the dressing, the lime juice, helps break down the cabbage and it lets the flavors really integrate better, so it definitely makes for some more delicious coleslaw. So I've got my ingredients for the sauce here. I have lime juice, veganese, and minced garlic. I'm choosing to use veganese because it has a bit of a sweeter taste, and I just think that it goes better to balance out the spiciness of the cilantro, the green onions, and the jalapenos. So I'm gonna go ahead. In the recipe, I listed specific measurements, but I honestly like to make the sauce kind of just based on what I think will work. So I kind of just throw it in and I test it and adjust as I go. So I'm just gonna take this much garlic. You can add more, you can add less, depending on how much you like garlic. And then I'm gonna add a good amount of veganese or mayo if you choose to use mayo. So that's anywhere between half a cup to a cup, just based on how creamy you want it, or if you're going for a more low fat option, then you can definitely add a little bit less. Again, it's just personal preference. And then I'm gonna add some lime juice. If you have real limes, it'll be about the juice of half of a lime, or just a good squirt like that. Again, I typically cook just based on what feels right. So I'm just gonna mix this together until I really integrate the lime juice and the garlic into the mayo, and I'm still gonna have a really thick and creamy sauce because I like my coleslaw a little bit creamier. Okay, so I've got it mixed up. It looks kind of like ranch, a little soupy. Next, I'm gonna go ahead and chop up the vegetables that I have to add. So I have some scallions, cilantro, and a jalapeno. I'll start with the jalapeno. You can add the seeds if you want. You can leave them in when you chop it, or you can take them out. If you want it less spicy, definitely take the seeds out. I typically include, I'll slice it lengthwise like this. So I will take the seeds out of half. So I'm just gonna carve the seeds out like this. So now I've got it where it's not, gonna be totally burning your tongue unless you like that. But it's, it's a good amount of spice in my opinion. But again, up to you. So I've got seeds in half, seeds not in the other half. And I'm just gonna cut it into centimeter by centimeter or smaller diced pieces. A tip that I'm not doing right now when you're cutting jalapeno, since sometimes it can burn your eye if you cut a jalapeno and then you accidentally cut your eye. If I'm being proactive, I'll wear gloves to avoid that later. But not today. Okay, so I've got my jalapeno. I'm gonna add that in the bowl. Next up is cilantro. I'm gonna chop this up pretty finely. I've got a whole bunch, I like a lot. Any of these ingredients though, I keep saying this, but it's really just whatever you prefer based on your preferences, your taste buds. But yeah, I like to add a lot of cilantro. And it doesn't have to be chopped super fine. It is coleslaw, so it's definitely gonna have a chunkier texture. So I just kind of roughly chopped it, and I'm gonna add it in. And then lastly, scallions. I definitely like to run the entire length of the scallion because I like to have the thinner green parts at the top and also the crunchier and more oniony white parts at the bottom. So again, not the smallest pieces, not the biggest. Definitely like to keep that like chunky texture to the coleslaw so you really get a lot in every bite. Okay, so like I said, I've got everything from the darker green at the top to the white at the bottom. And I'm just gonna dump that in. So I did my grocery shopping at Trader Joe's. They don't have like a really great coleslaw package. Honestly, the best one is the Dole brand. That's what you can find at Publix or Kroger. But yeah, so I grabbed a package of this shredded green cabbage with orange carrots mix. And then I also grabbed like the finer shredded green cabbage. So I'm just gonna do a little bit of both to get variety. This one is just like a little bit too crunchy for it to be completely straight up for your whole coleslaw. So I did about half and half. Okay. So now I'm just gonna toss, and I like to do it almost like I'm folding in the sauce. If you're an avid baker, that will make sense. And so basically I like scoop it down from the bottom to really integrate the sauce throughout the entire bowl. And I just want to get it really nice and coated. I feel like I'm going to add a little bit extra lime. Okay. And then lastly, just some salt and pepper, again, to taste. Careful not to go overboard on the salt. There's nothing worse than too salty coleslaw, and it's just sad. Okay, so I've got my coleslaw. I'm gonna put it aside in the fridge while I make the tacos. So next up for the tacos, I'm gonna begin by grilling the corn. So I've got 4 husked pieces of corn on the cob still, and I'm just gonna give them a good spray down with some spray olive oil. But if you don't have spray olive oil, you can lather it up with regular olive oil, you can melt butter, really like whatever kind of cooking oil you prefer. But I'm just gonna go and like give these each a good little spray. Okay. And I'm gonna take them out to the grill. So I'm putting my corn on the grill, and it's gonna take around 10 minutes to get them to be a little bit crispy, which is how I want them. And I'm gonna go in now and start on the rest of the tacos, but I'm gonna come back and check on these in about 5 minutes and give them a twist. Okay, so next I'm going to take the chickpeas and crisp them up a little bit in a frying pan. So I've got my can of rinsed chickpeas here all ready to go. All I did to rinse them was I opened the can, I drained the liquid, and I rinsed them in water. This helps especially if you have poor digestion, like the oil and the liquid that the chickpea comes in can upset your stomach, so I always like to rinse it. And it also helps them get a little bit crispier, especially when we're just doing like a quick saute just to get them to crisp up on the outside and keep that soft texture on the inside. So I'm just gonna take a bit of olive oil and just drizzle it in my bowl. Just a little is good. Kind of mix it around, make sure it's all over there. I'm gonna heat up my pan, medium high, like closer to high for sure, because again, it's just a quick little crisp up on the outside edges. Okay, so I'm gonna pour in my chickpeas. And I'm gonna make sure that they're evenly distributed on my pan. And I'm just gonna crack some salt and pepper over the top of them. And I do like to go heavier on the salt and the chickpeas. I just think that it adds to the flavor profile of them. And again, give it a good shake. And next I'm gonna move over and get my shrimp ready to go when the pan is free from the chickpeas. Okay, so next I'm gonna get my shrimp ready. I've got my chickpeas on the pan and they're cooking, and so is my corn. So all I've gotta do now is get my shrimp ready to go. So first things first, again, just like the chickpeas, I'm gonna add a little bit of drizzle of olive oil. Okay. Again, give it a good mix around. I'm actually gonna grab a spoon for this. Toss it around. And I'm gonna add this blackening seasoning that I got from the store. You can make your own blackening seasoning. It's really simple. It's just probably spices that you already have on hand: cayenne, paprika, onion powder, garlic powder. And I put that in the footnotes of the recipe, so you can go ahead and check that out if you don't have any pre-made spice like I do. But I'm gonna give it a pretty generous shake. And I'm gonna completely coat the shrimp. I need a little bit more. I've been seeing shrimp a lot at local farmers markets, so it's really awesome to be able to support local fishermen. But you can also find shrimp frozen or otherwise at your grocery store. And just keep adding seasoning until I have enough to coat completely. Okay. So that looks good to me. It's blackening seasoning on my shrimp. I'm gonna set that aside and go check on my corn and give my chickpeas another shake. So my corn is starting to look pretty good. I'm loving this dark black texture here. That means it's gonna be nice and crispy. So yeah, I think I'm ready to take it off. It's been about 8 minutes. So I've got good variety on like some black and crispy pieces, some that are still yellow and will be a little bit firmer. So good variety of texture there. Chickpeas are starting to get nice and crisped up. They're making good popping noises. As you can see, they're just turning a little bit brown. So I'm gonna take them off the heat and set them aside in a bowl to cool while the rest of my taco ingredients finish up. And in the meantime, I've also started to heat up my tortillas in the oven just a little bit so that they're nice and warm when I serve. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is cook the shrimp. So I already have it prepared with the blackening seasoning and the olive oil, and I'm just going to put it into the same skillet that I used from the chickpeas. It's still a little warm, so it'll make that nice sizzling sound when I throw them on. I can already smell the blackening seasoning. It smells so good. And something that's important is to make sure that you spread the shrimp out so that they're not overlapping. We really want everything to cook evenly. So I'm just going through and making sure that no shrimp is on top of another. Okay, looks good. And I'm gonna cook it for about 1 to 2 minutes on each side, or until they turn opaque. So while the shrimp is cooking, I've got my corn and I'm ready to cut it off the cob. So I'm just gonna take it on a cutting board, and I find that a serrated knife works easier to get it off. So I'm just gonna slice down the edge of the corn and get it off in pieces. Okay, now I'm gonna go check out my shrimp and flip it. Okay, so my shrimp is looking good. It's completely opaque. The blackening seasoning crisped up really nicely. So I'm going to set it aside, and I'm almost ready to assemble my tacos. So the only thing that I have left to do is, before I assemble my tacos, is to combine the corn with the sauce from the ancho chilies. So you can do this while the corn is still on the cob. If you have like a brush, like you would use for an egg wash on a pie, you could brush the corn on the cob with the sauce. But I find it's easier to cut the corn off the cob first because it gets really messy if you're cutting sauced up corn off the cob. But yeah, it's just easier to cut it and then toss it, in my opinion. So I've taken the sauce out of the can, and I'm just going to toss it with this corn. Pretty spicy and pretty smoky, which is delicious, but I will warn you that if you are sensitive to something that's really spicy, I would definitely not use the entire amount of sauce that's put in the can. Like, only use as much as you think you can handle. But yeah, this is looking delicious. And so now I'm ready to assemble my tacos. So I've got my corn that is covered in this beautiful ancho chili sauce. I have my chickpeas that are crisped up and my blackened shrimp. And I just took my tortillas out of the oven. I just had them in there at like 250 just while I was cooking the shrimp and the chickpeas, and they got a little bit crispy on the outside, and of course they're delightfully warm. So I just took my coleslaw out of the fridge. Okay. So to assemble my taco, I'm just going to grab a tortilla. I'm gonna put in the corn first and kind of lay a base down the middle. I chose to do like half corn, half wheat tortilla because I liked the size of them, especially with shrimp tacos. It's nice to have something a little bit smaller. And then I'm gonna put in a spoonful of chickpeas and distribute that evenly. And a few pieces of shrimp. So here's my finished product. I have 2 shrimp tacos and a little bit of cilantro, lime, jalapeno slaw on the sides. Looks delicious. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you made some delicious tacos and coleslaw. Make sure to fill out the survey in the comments, and hope to see you guys next Wednesday.